He's a Christian and he won't do anything. Opportunity to share with the women that though he's a Christian, the flesh is still weak and vulnerable to temptation, especially when the woman doesn't fulfill his needs in this area. Many in the world today think of a bodyguard as nothing more than hired fluky. For some that might be true, but to a large degree it's not true. A bodyguard is a protector, and in many respects an overseer of someone else's well-being. The American Heritage Dictionary defines bodyguard as a person or group of persons, usually armed and responsible for the physical safety of one or more specific persons. Even in the entertainment field, a bodyguard not only has the responsibility to protect a person, but also to navigate their protection. Meaning that, if that celebrity or politician has to be to a specific destination at a specific time and date, the bodyguard would pre-scope out the best route to get that person to their appointed destination safely. Meaning that person's safety is in the bodyguard's hands, in return for being well paid. Now in many instances, the bodyguard becomes a trusted friend as well as a protector. Now we know in the entertainment or political arena that, in return for the bodyguard watching over and protecting their client's body, their reward is a salary for covering their client's body. But when it comes to the marriage arena, the wife has a bodyguard or protector known as a husband, who watches over and protects her and their family to keep them safe. He's chief of security of the home, to make sure that all locks on the doors and windows are in working order. He's to follow up and make sure that all are safe and secure year-round. And if they're going someplace together as family, he's to usually scope the territory, to choose the best route to get her and their family to their destination safely. Now we know in general that the wife doesn't put her husband on a financial payroll to protect her, which would be ludicrous to say in the least, because of his vested interest in the family as a whole. But in exchange for him using his body to protect and cover her and their family, she's to use her body to cover and protect him from temptation, as she was equipped by God to do. From the beginning of their marriage. As with most marriages, the military slogan would apply, because the marriages are in need of a few good men to do a better job of serving and protecting the wife and family. But the wives should learn to understand the value of a good or excellent husband, because many wives may have just that, but are too blinded by the viewpoint of society to realize it. Some wives might acknowledge they have a good or excellent husband, but may acknowledge it to everyone else but their own husband. While other wives so often lack the supportive or cultivation skills to bring forth a diamond out of the roughage, when it comes to their husbands, and as a result they're both miserable in the midst of it. Not to mention, many wives may be quick to guard their husband's body with their mouth through jealousy and insecurity, but are too lazy to protect it with supply in the bedroom. Which creates a whole set of problems all by itself, especially when you consider the cliché that action speaks louder than words, but we'll cover more on that part in the next chapter. Now, for those women that are still hard-hearted about what I'm sharing for whatever reason. You're likened to a high school dropout, where you disrespected your teachers, parents, kept cutting classes, training, and leave school, home, prematurely with a poor understanding of life. Proverbs 22 verse 6. Instead of graduating from home with honor, you've shortchanged yourself by refusing to submit to the training of a mother or father or the lack thereof. You then enter into adulthood not having a good understanding of what's necessary to sustain a long-term relationship. Ephesians 6 verses 1-4, Colossians 3 verse 20. Instead of majoring in the requirements of elegant womanhood, you chose to major in the electives of beauty, sex appeal and sassiness, or having an attitude. So instead of being equipped with an elegant womanhood degree, EWD, you chose to be under-equipped for your role, of which you became a womanhood dropout. And as you know, things are more difficult for them without degrees than those that have diplomas or degrees. As a result, in life those women get failing marks from the men you're with, much the same way so many men get failing marks from the women they're with, by being underprepared and under-equipped to do their jobs, responsibilities, as men. Now unless they decide to go through the process, those women are doomed to struggle and stumble their way through relationships in the many years ahead. But the ones that realize they have these elegant and feminine shortcomings, they start looking around for an older, more mature woman whom they respect and trust. That older woman may be a friend or another family member that shares much wisdom with on how to change and turn things around as a woman. Of which Titus 2 verses 3-5 says, 3. The aged women likewise, that they be in behavior as becometh holiness, not false accusers, not given to much wine, teachers of good things. 4. That they may teach the young women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children. 5. To be discreet, chaste, keepers at home, good, obedient to their husbands, that the word of God be not blasphemed. Now in the midst of their being tutored by the older woman, they learned that they weren't really trying to stress their independence as a woman. They were really making excuses to avoid fulfilling their God-given responsibilities as a woman and often chose of the consequences over the blessings. Be White going through the older woman, she's able to get an abbreviated version of the Elegant Womanhood degree, EWD, but since she didn't go through the full process, it's only a womanhood degree, WHD, aka GED. And for the men the equivalent that would be a manhood degree, MHD, which is less compared to getting the full S.M.D, strong manhood degree, which can leave him somewhat raw in his presentation. Even though the lesser degree may work for both men and women, it's more like tripping while learning on the job, as you get better at it. But with the others they're trained before the job comes, which is a much easier transition into life and relationship. For the woman, she learns to be a whole blessing to her mate, rather than just relying on beauty, sex appeal and sassiness or having an attitude to get her through. Because no matter how much she dresses up or polishes up the outside, it can't make up for what's missing on the inside. There's a nectar of elegance, femininity, and charm that's to flow from a woman out to a man, and likewise a nectar of strength and leadership that's to flow from a man out to a woman. But if they've missed courses on the cultivation of being wonderful, charming, and quietly elegant, then by the time they do learn those things due to their procrastination, their marriage may have already been demolished by the lack of them. Without these things being cultivated in you as a woman, you may just be classified as just being a female. Of which just being an adult female would mean that you're capable of more negative things concerning anger and hostility than a woman of elegance. Which would also classify you as a womanhood dropout that procrastinates or refuses to learn what's necessary to become laminated to your mate as one. The difference between the two is, a woman of elegance is balanced in her emotions and feelings to complete her mate, while womanhood dropouts are unbalanced in their emotions and feelings, as they willingly resort to screaming, yelling, manipulation, being selfish or cheating to gain the advantage in any given situation, to seemingly camouflage their shortcomings. As a woman, you must come to understand that you're not your own workmanship, but you're God's workmanship, of which Ephesians 2 verse 10 says, "For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus unto good works, which God hath before ordained that we should walk in them." There are certain things that God has pre-authored in you to exist, but when you place them under a bushel of beauty, sex appeal and sassiness or having an attitude, you cloud the complete presentation of womanhood, according to Matthew 5 verse 15. Even though verse 16 encourages the woman not to be shallow or vain, but to let that inner light shine before men, that they may see her good works, and glorify her Father which is in heaven. Now, for those that don't have their EWD or the WHD, they're womanhood dropouts and hang out with other womanhood dropouts. Not to mention that, many also come from families of womanhood dropouts that are so independent as to not want to be equipped with the proper knowledge and understanding needed to make a relationship flourish with their male counterparts. With them, it's not uncommon for them to have dropout reunions, where they share their triumphs over men in relationships. But even in life itself, literary dropouts must admit they didn't succeed or flunked out and acknowledge the many bad choices they've made that kept them from being successful. But many of the womanhood dropouts would rather lose an excellent relationship than to let go of and stop portraying a false image of beauty, sex appeal, or having an attitude. Therefore, it'll cost them more in the end than they're willing to pay, but they'll do it anyway. And where the real danger is, when they befriend and contaminate or influence an EWD or WHD to become just like them. They already know within their heart that they're better than that, but the allure of beauty, sex appeal, and being sassy or having an attitude is too appealing to their untrained, untamed, or unruly emotions and feelings. Which again is the spoiled brat part of everyone, the part of them that doesn't like to be told what to do, so they protect the brat at the expense of everything else. But if they decide to change their ways, they can go from being a rough-cut stone into a polished diamond, with an excellent understanding of life and relationship, if they follow the process of God for elegant womanhood. Now women, wives, and mothers, from this point on, I'd like to share some extra wisdom from above with you. This book is appropriately entitled, Lost Elegance of a Woman, because elegance, though it may be lost or ignored, it can be found again, provided you want it more than what you already have. Especially if you're trying to put a false image of yourself ahead of God's viewpoint and design of you. 1. What kind of image do you want to project of yourself other than the contaminated, shallow one that God frowns against? Again, Proverbs 31 verse 30 says, Favor, sex appeal, is deceitful, and beauty is vain, but a woman that feareth, reverence, the Lord, she shall be praised. Then Proverbs 31 verses 1 to 12 says, Who can find a virtuous, elegant woman? For her price is far above rubies. 11. The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. 12. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. Over the years of going many places and talking with many men about women, as I listened to many of their stories about women and listening to many women's stories about men. When a room is filled with women, namely of the dime a dozen variety, I'd hear several men sometimes say, that one is fine, or this one is sexy, or that one's pretty, or they'd like to sleep with this one or that one. But when a woman of elegance walks into the room, being beautiful both inside and out, with her elegant and feminine presence of charm flowing from within her, she stands head and shoulders above all the others in the room. During those times, I'd usually be near many of the men to watch their reactions when that kind of woman walked by them. Even though that elegant woman may not always be the most beautiful or the sexiest woman in the room, she still stood out in the midst of all the other dime a dozen women. But the reaction of most of the men was usually, WOW or M or some sort of sigh. So out of curiosity, I'd ask them what does that mean to them when they come across an elegant woman like that. And so many times their answers were, she's a woman of elegance, or she has a soft presence about her, or she has a soft, gentle presence, or she a tender presence, or she has an intoxicating presence on men, or she has a breathtaking tender presence about her. But the one word that stood out the most was, refreshing. Those men would tell me that, it's refreshing when a woman like that comes into a room, their very presence alone is so refreshing and disarming to a man, rather than being another one of the dime a dozen brigade, who are very limited in their presentation of womanhood.